BTL continues on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Coming up next hour, Vahe Gregorian, now of the Kansas City Star, moving over from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch to become a columnist at the Star in just a few weeks. Later on in the 5 o'clock hour, Ryan Lefevre from Detroit, where the Royals begin a series tomorrow. We'll talk some Royals baseball. Right now, it is all NASCAR. It's a big day at Kansas Speedway yesterday. Scott and Kirk, the RacinBoys, joining us now to talk about it. Hello, RacinBoys. How we doing?
Hello, Kevin. How you doing, bud?
I am well. What'd you make of this thing yesterday?
It was an eventful race. Maybe not as dramatic as what we saw last fall in the chase, but it was a pretty good race, I thought.
I thought it was pretty good. The restarts were exciting. That's what we thought was exciting about last year's race. We had 14 last year, 8 this year, but still some good side-by-side action at times. We saw some 3- and 4-wide racing into the corners, so not much more you can ask for. It's just Matt Kenseth had a great day, and I think most anybody that knows anything about the sport saw that coming.
Did you pick Kenseth, Scott?
I picked Kenseth not only to win, but to dominate.
Yeah, because you said he's not a very good qualifier, but he qualified well here, right?
Right. He's only qualified on the pole 9 times in 13 years. And when he's up there in the front and his car unloads off the truck that fast, you've got to pick him as the favorite to win.
So does that mean he's one of these guys who's a game day type of guy, or does it just mean he's a really good driver that sometimes doesn't get into great equipment? What makes a good qualifier, and what makes a guy who's better than that in a race?
Well, I'd like to consider myself a good qualifier, and I didn't win a lot of races, not near as many races as I should have. But qualifying, you go into it with a different mindset. You run it off in the corner. You've got to be really brave, throw caution to the wind. Don't worry about hurting yourself. Don't worry about hurting the car. And then you have to have a good, solid car underneath you to do that. And I think that all came together. And Matt Kenseth is not a guy that takes a lot of chances. I mean, you look at him, even when he does interviews, he's kind of a laid-back, soft-spoken guy. He's not a real flamboyant guy. Well, that shows it up in his driving style. He's kind of a laid-back driver. That usually doesn't lead to a good qualifier, and I think that's why when you see him qualify this well, you better take note of it.
And this is only the first time since 1985 that we've had a pole winner win 3 straight NASCAR Sprint Cup Series events. So that is pretty rare in of itself to see a pole winner win a race, but to do it 3 times in a row now here this season, that's pretty unusual. But I thought Casey Kane, who started in 27th place in the race, had something for Matt Kenseth there at the bottom. He got down to the inside at one point, and maybe if he'd had another lap or two, he might have gotten around him. It would have been tough, but I thought Casey Kane might have had even a faster car than Matt Kenseth there at the end of the race.
I think the problem there, Kevin, is that he had to get around Jimmy Johnson and Martin Truex on that restart. And there was already a little separation between him and Matt Kenseth once he made the pass on that restart around those guys. And he used up his tires quickly getting around those 2 guys and then trying to run down Matt Kenseth. By the time he got there, his car was all used up.
We've got 2 races here, 2 race weekends now at Kansas Speedway with NASCAR. Were they pleased with ticket sales and turnout yesterday? How did it all go?
Yeah, I think they have to be very pleased with the way ticket sales are going with these 2 events. When you compare it to other facilities around the country, it's always tougher to sell out your facility when you have 2 events than it is when they had 1. And I think they've done an outstanding job out here marketing this racetrack. Weather played a big role here this week as far as a walk-up. They didn't completely sell it out, but it would hamper a walk-up crowd on the last day. But they had the best day of the whole weekend on Sunday, so I think maybe a lot of people did turn out that may not have a couple of days earlier.
Considering that if you look at most of the tracks on the schedule, they have about half the grandstands full. We have to be really happy with what we had for a show up yesterday. And you look at the television ratings. The highest on the network yesterday, 3.9. That's 5% over last year. So I think people are getting into Kansas Speedway, the location. We've talked about that a lot of times. And the action now. I think the action on the track, Kansas Speedway is known as a track that you never know what's going to happen. And you kind of saw some of that again yesterday. And I think that's why the fan attendance is good at Kansas.
Well, they did an outstanding job of repaving and putting in the progressive banking down in the corners. We didn't see a whole lot of two-wide racing early in the race, but in the last half of the race, they were getting too wide, getting up into that second groove. And it's going to get better as time moves on when the track ages and works itself in. They'll bring back a little softer tire that wears a little bit better. I'm pretty excited about the prospects of what these races are really going to be like here in a couple of years from now when the track ages.
See, I look at it a little different. I think they're good now. So, I mean, I think they're running side by side through the corners most of the time. And again, you saw 3 and 4 wide racing off into the corners a few times. I don't think the drivers wanted to move up there. I think they could have. If they wanted to start working that groove up yesterday, they could have.
Yeah, but what's it going to be like when they can race up in that really high groove?
Well, they'll eventually get up there. But, I still saw good side-by-side action out there yesterday.
65,000, what, 2/3, 3/4 capacity, I guess you would say. And, that's as you say, good for now. Where are we in the sport where, it used to be some places you'd get sellouts, things like that?
Well, I think we're a little ways away from getting back to the days in the early part of this decade and even into the 90s when the economy was good and people had the money to travel, because a lot of your fans come from all around the country. I mean, they sell tickets in all 50 states here in this country, and the travel expenses for a lot of NASCAR fans are just not good right now. I mean, a lot of them go in motorhomes. A lot of them go in motorhomes, and it costs a lot of money to put fuel in those things.
Fuel, right? Did a lot of people used to go to multiple races, and maybe that's the difference?
Oh yeah, our old buddy Chuck Cremedall that was a big supporter of 810 for so many years. Heck, he went, I think, one year to 25 races. Yeah, so a lot of people go to multiple races.
All right, you mentioned it's become an unpredictable track. Let's talk about Kyle Busch. On the radio, apparently yesterday, after he slid up the track, he got they if he was okay, and he responded back to Team Kansas, right? And then was later heard to say, "We just don't know what to do with Kansas because he can't race here. He's just no good."
Yeah.
Why? Why can't Kyle Busch figure this track out?
I think it's something in their setup and what they're trying to get out of the car. But the one thing I said yesterday on the post-race show is that, Kyle Busch, when he drives, he gets to the edge of crashing more often than anybody else. He's not afraid to get up there and just get right on that edge and take a chance and get over that edge once in a while. And that's what happened to him, I think, a couple times yesterday. He just got to the edge, got over it, and spun out a couple times. But if you listen to what was wrong with this car, and this happens even on the short track level. We used to have this problem out at I-70 Speedway. You put a lot of wheel into the car, turning it to the left as you enter into the corner. As you come through the center of the corner through 1 and 2, you start to put a little more wheel into the car. Hopefully not much. Hopefully you don't have to turn it too hard to the left. But if you have to continue turning the car a little bit more to the left as you exit the corner, at one point those tires are going to grab. Those front tires are going to grab, and when that happens, it snaps the rear end of the car loose. And that's what was going on with Kyle Busch yesterday. He was having what we call a push, snap, loose condition. And he was riding on the edge. And when you have that kind of condition with your car, those are the results you're going to get.
Wouldn't you think they would have learned after that truck race on Saturday that he wouldn't want his car set up in that fashion? I mean, he spun out a couple of times in the truck race.
Truck has no similarities to a Cup car.
Yeah,
none, zero. So you can't compare what you try to do with the truck to what you do with the car.
Well, I understand that part, but the fact that he did spin out ought to tell him that you hadn't ought to set up the car that way.
They're not set up the same. They're not even close to being the same. It's a total different philosophy on the way you set them up. They might have had the same problem, but it wasn't the same setup. So they probably just scratching their head trying to figure out what they need to do.
Well, the Hendrick cars had troubles getting a setup during the first couple of days, and then raced well on Sunday and made an adjustment. It almost sounds like Jimmy Johnson's comments that they just were at a loss as well, and then just said, well, let's come up with this thing that we did in one lap the other day and try that, and it worked. So is this a difficult track for people to get a read on?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I guess you could say that. I think the track's a little tough, too, to drive, to be honest with you. I mean, it narrows up a little bit getting up off of turn 2. We've seen it for the last 13 years. People having problems getting off of turn 2. Now that the wall is pushed in a little bit more with the softer wall, that makes it even a little more difficult. So, again, it's all about the wheel input that you're putting, getting up off of the corner. And, yeah, I think some of the guys are having a little bit of difficult time with it. But you got to remember they've got the G6 car. They've got the new pavement there. They've got a new tire. There was a lot of new elements brought to the game here this week. And I think everybody's kind of scratching their head. You know Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knash, you know for a fact that they're going to be fast during the race. It doesn't matter where they qualify. The cream is going to rise to the top, and he is always at the top, and I didn't expect him to run back in the back for a minute.
They brought a harder tire for a brand-new racetrack than what would be the case at a track that's been around for a while. Why is that the case? Because they want it to be safe. You know, if you have a tire that wears a little bit on a brand-new racetrack with a lot of grip, that means you're going to have a lot of blowouts and tires blister and so forth. So they had to bring a safe tire, a harder tire, in order to get through the first few races out here until the track ages just a little bit.
You mentioned on Friday that they were going to have the cooler temperatures to qualify, and then it was going to be completely different on Sunday, which it was. Is this just so you kind of have to guess, having gone through it before, qualifying in cool weather, then the race comes on? I mean, I'm sure they've done that before, but is that difficult as well?
That's one of the most difficult things to do as a crew chief, is to figure what kind of adjustments you need to put in your car from qualifying, or what kind of setup. We were talking about 40, 48, 49 degrees when they qualified and when they practiced in practice conditions. Now we're up about 15, 20 degrees more on race day. In fact, it went up and down a couple times, and that was even tougher for some of the teams, I think, because the temperature went up to 65, then it went back down in the 50s, then it went back up into the 60s. Yeah, I think it makes it a little difficult on them.
And the wind was a little bit of a factor early in the race, too, and then it could die down. So there was a lot of things thrown at these crew chiefs that I'd have to believe they were losing about as much sleep prior to this race than they were at any race they've had all year.
Talking with the RacinBoys, Scott and Kirk, about the events of Kansas Speedway this weekend, as Matt Kenseth gets the win yesterday afternoon. There was a lot of chatter this weekend about the boys over at Hendrick turning in some other teams. I guess this has probably been going on forever in this sport. What's the protocol in this sport when you think another team is doing something wrong, cheating, whatever it may be? How do they actually turn each other in without getting caught for turning each other in, or do they care if they get caught turning somebody in?
Well, I don't know exactly how to answer this, Kevin, but there's a couple ways a team could bring something another team is doing to the eyes of the official. They could say, hey, we see those guys over there doing it. We just want to make sure that if that's legal, we can do it. And see, they don't look at it as ratting people out that way. You know, they just want to make sure if they can do it, we can do it. And then there's other people that would just flat out tell on them. And I don't know which way that happened. And nobody's even for sure if the Hendrick Motorsports are the ones that ratted them out. And if they are the ones, shame on them, because they cheat as much as anybody.
But we see this a lot in racing, even at the grassroots level. You have racers turning each other in. They think, hey, listen, you need to take a look at what's going on over here.
I will say
that happens all the time.
Now, I will tell you, when I raced, I never ratted on anybody that was doing. If I knew that they were doing it and they were getting away with it, I'd do it. That's how I did it. So.
Well, yeah, the sport has a long history of saying, you're not cheating if you don't get caught.
Right.
So, it is, especially with Hendrick, as dominant as they are, and Jimmy Johnson, as great as he's been over the last several years, isn't part of this intimidation, isn't part of it, hey, I'm better than you, I'll do whatever I want, I'll turn you in, and I really don't care what you think. Isn't that part of what's going on here?
I don't think so.
Really?
No, I just don't. I think they don't want to see another team have an unfair advantage. I think that's
all
really what it boils
what
down
they
to.
Specialize in.
I know that.
Jimmy Johnson is specialize in is unfair advantages. Kirk, you buying it?
I don't think they're better than anybody else.
I remember a press conference last August at Michigan when Brad Keselowski was sitting right next to Casey Kane, and he was talking about Hendrick, and we wouldn't do anything like that. We're clean. We're everything's good.
We're
at
above
Penske
that.
Motorsports. We're above that.
Yeah.
You guys don't think the 48 team thinks they're better than everybody else?
Well, sure, I'm sure they do.
Yeah, but not to the point to where they can go out and and do stuff like what you're talking about, telling them, but hey, we don't
Why
care,
not?
we're better. I don't think they look down on people like they're better. I think they think they're a better team? Yes. Do they think they're a better person and they look down on them? No.
No, I think what they're saying is, catch us if you can. We know what you're up to, and we'll rat you in a heartbeat. I dare you to come try to catch us because we're really good at this.
Well, when you make public statements out there like, we would never do what the Hendricks do, you better watch your back a little bit. So
Right.
I think there could be that at play.
Yeah, no
Who
doubt.
cheats more? Who is the 48 team the cheatingest team?
Well, I would say that they're the king of cheating right now, yeah.
Right now, but it's been that way for years.
Yeah. During the course of the last 5 or 7 years, probably, yeah.
All of them try
And
to
maybe
take
even longer than that, if you think about it. I mean, you go back to the Harry Hyde days and the back when Darrell Waltrip and Jeff Bodine and Tim Richmond, and heck, they could have been real good cheaters back then, too. Harry
But
Hyde
this
was
is
known as a
accepted.
guy like that.
Well, the
This is
thing,
accepted.
and also it's accepted by NASCAR because we've talked about it before. Nobody's ever lost a win. I mean, if nobody's
Right.
ever won a race and then had it taken away. I mean, it's the only sport where that happens. I mean,
and they're
they
fat
don't-
and happy with cash, so they don't mind paying the fine. You know?
Right. They don't care about paying the fine. They don't even lose positions.
Well, they lose points
usually.
and 25 points in today's world, considering it's 1 point per position. That's quite a few points.
All right, but still, until they've won bench cars, park cars,
Park 'em.
and or take wins away, nobody's really going to take anything that seriously. Isn't
The
that correct?
excuse NASCAR is always given is we've already had the victory lane celebration. The fans have already gone home thinking they know who the winner is. We don't want to ruin that for the fans. But really, I'm with you. If you didn't really win the race, then you didn't win the
Right.
race. If you're cheating, you didn't win.
Did you hear Richard Petty's quote this weekend? You know, he got caught a couple times, and I think it was 199th win or his 198th win out of his 200. His motor was too big, which is one of the most serious penalties, your motor being too big, right?
Right, yeah. Well, I
And
see that.
and I don't remember what the fine or what the consequences was for that, but Richard Petty's quote yesterday, he says, just don't get caught.
Right. I get a Ferrari, you take a Honda. Let's go race.
That's right.
Right.
You can't do that anymore. You can't cheat like that, but they do get away with some stuff that makes a difference still, right?
Right, yeah, and that's the thing. I think a lot of people think when we talk about cheating that they do all these things. They do this one big thing that makes them a lot faster. If you're a really good cheater, they're going to be very faint ways of cheating. It's going to be very hard to detect.
Like
you
you're
know what I
doing
mean?
12
12
small
or
things.
12 small things instead of one big thing, and that's the way you get away with cheating, really.
So what was Penske? Was it Penske that Hendrick had a problem with?
Yes, and they come
LA.
in, $100,000 fine to each of the crew chiefs, 6-week suspensions, and
For what?
25 owner points for messing around with the rear end housing.
Rear end of
The way the rear end was mounted, I think it was somewhere in the trailing arms. We're not really for sure on that, so I don't want to be held to that. But the way the rear end was mounted in the car had been tinkered with. And what they were trying to do is get a little squall in the car where it kind of we talk about dog leg, how a car kind of tracks a little funny. They're trying to get it where the car turned in the corner a little bit better, and that's what they were after.
And NASCAR says that they must, any new parts put on a car, it's got to be approved by NASCAR, and the way it's assembled has got to be approved by NASCAR ahead of time. And Penske did not run this by NASCAR before they put
and
it
that's
on
what
the car.
we're hearing is that they did bring some of these parts over there to get them approved by NASCAR, but once they assembled all the parts together, they didn't have it approved by NASCAR, and that was the problem. It was the combination of the way things were mounted together that was illegal, not one particular part.
Now it's under appeal, and we'll find out how that goes, but they're still able to hang on to their jobs and be the crew chiefs for a while until we find out how the appeal is going to go.
This is big, though, Kevin. I mean, not only the crew chief, but the car chief and the engineer. This is the first time in NASCAR history.
And the team manager.
And the team manager, that's correct. So 4 members get penalized and kicked out for 6 weeks. That's a big deal.
They used to do the IROC race. Is that correct? That's the name of it,
Right. International
And they
Race of Champions.
Right. And the cars were identically prepared.
They were supposed to be identically prepared, but I will tell you, Danny Lasowski, who won down, was it Talladega or Daytona that he won one of those races in? He said that there was always 1 or 2 cars that were just a little bit better than the rest.
at least in his estimation. But has there ever been? I mean, the only way you could probably completely cure cheating is that, like in football, the footballs are the same, and the field is the same size. And has there been ever a thought to having it just be IROC all the time?
I don't think you could get. I don't think it works. But I've built cars identical before. I mean, same frame, put the same motor in it and everything, and one car looks just the same as another, and it's not as fast as the other car. For some reason, cars have their own personality. Some cars are just faster than others. Even if they're welded up, built the same and everything, they're just not the same.
And
motors are the same way. You can put an identical motor together with another one, and one's going to make 10 more horsepower than the other for no explanation.
But all I'm saying is that you could actually have the sport where NASCAR prepared the cars, or a group of technicians who worked for the sport rather than for the individual teams, and then nobody would be crying foul. They might not like the car they got on a certain week, but I mean that would be the only way to do it.
I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like that.
That would be
my wife. You tell me if I'm wrong. My car, and this is for years, not the current car I'm driving now, but for years, I can tell a difference between a good day and a bad day for my car.
Sure.
Is that true?
Absolutely.
Weather, road conditions, things like that. I can tell when it's performing better.
Right.
Part of racing is allowing the teams, the mechanics, to prepare their cars. It's not just about the driver, but it's about the way the car is prepared, the way the equipment is put together.
I agree with that.
You have to
It is a
give
team
the
sport.
mechanics the freedom to be able to make the car go faster than the other guy.
All I'm saying is the only way to keep people from saying they're cheating over there is if there's no they.
Well, you could
the same guys are.
You could give them all identical parts in a giant bin and say, build your car like Pinewood Derby.
Right.
Here's your parts, go. Whatever you can make of it, good luck.
The one thing you said there, Danny, though, if they said they would be saying, well, NASCAR give those guys a better car this week. So, I mean, you'd just be trading one for the other.
And they would. And
right?
they would.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
NASCAR would be more corrupt than the teams, I think.
Well, I don't know if they would do that or not, but I'm just saying the fans would be saying.
On.
Junior'd be winning half the races.
Junior.
But you know what?
Now, you actually think that a sport at this level that the organizers would fix the game?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No way.
Yes.
No.
Hey, this is you said.
I heard Brad Keselowski.
I heard
Junior.
I heard right. I heard you the other day on one of the pre-race shows saying, "Well, the rules kind of change from week to week, Kirk." So, I mean, obviously there are certain things they like to have happen.
They make adjustments on the rules.
I don't think NASCAR cares who wins, but let's all remember NASCAR is in control, and they will do whatever.
So are you saying, Kirk, that NASCAR would rig a race?
No, I'm not saying that.
You just said they would do what they have to do. That's what you just said.
All I'm saying is it's their playground, and if you don't want to abide by the rules that they set out, then you can go race somewhere else.
And I'm going to tell you, if it was like the IROC and they put 43 identical cars out there every week, guys would start saying, you know what, he had a better car, or this guy had a better car, and it would be amazing how many times Junior has a better car.
I don't think so, to be honest with you.
Now, I don't think NASCAR cares who wins, but I'll tell you something. You can have all
not
equal
under
parts.
This system.
You can
I'm
have
talking about a different system. If you had a different system where, the stupid lap traffic guys that don't belong out there had equal cars and they were beating all the big names of the sport week in and week out, they would make changes.
I don't think that would happen, though, because I think still the best drivers and the best mechanics would still win the races. I don't care if you had equal parts for everybody. The cream would still rise to the top.
Is
and
David
the same
Stremme a
drivers,
driver?
the same drivers you see winning races today would still be winning the races.
Is there a driver named David Stremme?
Yes.
He wins about back-to-back races, and that'd be it for old Strimmer. His car, he might show up and only get to use 3 tires.
Well, the thing. So you're saying, okay, there's one of these guys up here at the top. Somebody's better than somebody else. Okay, you're telling me that Jimmy Johnson running who's a bad team? Was a one-car team that doesn't have much money.
Phil Parsons Racing.
All right, okay. Jimmy runs for good old Bill Parsons Racings. He's going to win?
Phil Parsons Racing will not win. They're starting.
Who's their driver?
Michael McDowell.
Well, there you have it.
Well, there you go then.
I am. What I am saying is, The teams with the most money, Jimmy Johnson wouldn't be driving for a bad team. The teams still with the most money and the most resources and the best people that's got working for him are still going to win the races.
But he's talking about
He's
talking if they have identically prepared cars.
No, I'm not even talking about that. What I'm talking about is there it still is an aspect of this sport, and I understand. Hendrick Motorsports is not going to hire Michael McDowell or whatever his name is to drive their car. I get that.
Michael McDowell had a very good ride at one time. He drove for Michael
Waltrip
Racing, and he didn't perform, and that's why he's driving for Phil Parsons.
Okay, well that's what I'm getting at though. But you're saying that no driver would have a chance with old Phil Parsons at the helm.
Well, they wouldn't have the best equipment to be able to
Well,
compete week in and
well,
week
then
out. Could they win a
that's-
one-off race? Maybe.
No.
But they couldn't compete
No, they
on
couldn't even win a one-off.
regular basis.
So is this all I'm getting at is this like worse than the differential in baseball? Or is it? I guess you're saying it is because they have no chance to win. You just said,
And even the Royals are in first place right now.
And
Well,
Tampa's pay the World Series.
You still have 20-some cars out there that have a chance to win on a given day. That's more so than you've ever seen in the sport. Back in the early days of NASCAR,
This is too big a topic, but I'm saying if almost half the field has no chance, why are they out there?
Yeah, I don't like it either.
Because
We'll save that for Friday.
They're making a living racing. That's why. You have a right to work.
Well, I got a 44th car I want to run.
All
I'm saying
all
the
you've got to do,
44th
Kevin, is
car
go
should
get
have a chance.
You got to go. No, I don't think so. Does the 30th team in the league? I mean,
right.
there's teams in the league that are never going to win in the NFL,
Okay.
right?
Denny Hamlin did not run yesterday. What's been going on with his team? He's going to be maybe back this week. Is that right?
Yeah, he's supposed to go in for a doctor's checkup on Tuesday, and he may be in the car. They call it a 50-50 shot. He may be in the car this Saturday night at Richmond, but
are they still
probably
alive
more
in the
than
standings?
likely another week at Darlington. I would say no. I don't think he's going to make the chase because I don't think he'll finish in the top 20.
Who's been driving his car?
Brian Vickers has been driving
The last
his car.
couple weeks, and Mark Martin. I think he still has a chance to make the chase myself. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the standings here. I see Mark Martin at 16th and Denny Hamlin at 26th. Which is which?
It doesn't matter where Denny's at. First of all, what they've got to do is they've got to get Denny up into 20th in points. And then Denny has to win 2, maybe 3 races during that time.
Well,
Can
these
he
are driver
do that?
points. So the guys who drove his car gained nothing for him while he was out, right?
No.
Owner points only.
But that's not the Cup standings.
Yeah, there's an owner championship and a driver's
Right.
championship.
But
The driver's championship's one that matters. And
Sprint Cup champion is a driver champion, right?
Right.
Jimmy Johnson's in the
Right.
lead now and probably not going to let go of it, right?
he's got a huge lead right now, and I don't think he'll let go.
Don't you guys know how this works? Haven't you figured it out yet? It doesn't matter how big his lead is when we get into the chase for the championship.
Yeah, but if you're running this well this early, that's going to carry over into the chase.
Okay, I could see that.
More
But, I
than
mean,
likely.
just because he's got a big lead here doesn't mean squat.
All right, I've beaten you guys at so many racing bets now. We're gonna
Whatever.
have to
You haven't beat me in a lot of them. Maybe Kirk.
You're gonna have to buy Dixon's chili, okay? Not just take me to lunch there. You have to
I
own the
lose
restaurant.
every one of these
I was
bets.
going to say,
Every one of these bets. I'll bet you guys another lunch at Dixon's Chili. I'll come over there, although I don't know how I could ever. You guys could feed me the rest of my life. I'll give you any 5 drivers. I'll take Jimmy Johnson to win the championship. You guys want that?
say, what's the bet?
You guys pick any 5 you want between you, and I'll take Jimmy.
I'll take that all day.
All right, send me an email. Pick your 5 drivers.
All right.
I'll take Jimmy, and I'll see you at Dixon.
Just be careful,
Thing
though.
is, Kirk can buy Dixon's if he wants.
Well, yeah, I can.
Right.
Now, see, I agree with you on that. That's where I'm on the other end of it. I don't know how I
What,
can.
that you can buy Dixon's Chili?
No, he didn't want part
No,
of
I didn't want part of that bet because I agree with you about Jimmy Johnson.
like he always does,
All right.
Kevin. He always agrees
Let's
with
take
you.
him on. Let's take him on.
Hey, I'm
Let's take
ready.
him on, Kirk.
Knock it down to
Done.
3 if you want. I don't care. I don't
3
need
it
5.
is. I just did it. We just knocked it to 3,
Nah,
Kirk.
that's fine.
You negotiate a price on this, and it doesn't have to be a chili bowl, okay? We'll do some cash if Traylor wants to bet some
Just
cash.
remember, Kevin, you haven't beat me like you beat Kirk. Just
I
remember
beat
that.
you at indoor racing. You had to cheat your way around the track to beat me at that, and I beat you at video simulated racing.
That's the only game the only thing you've ever beat me at is that simulator. You
Well,
didn't
because
beat
I
me
haven't driven on Kansas Speedway. They didn't let me out there with you.
Well, yeah, but you said the only reason you beat me on the go-kart is because you crashed me.
No, you cheated and knocked me over the rail.
That's
and
what
were
happens when you're in the
disqualified.
way.
No, Sadler's disqualifies for that, unlike NASCAR.
well,
you got parked.
Did I get parked?
You
Rough
should have.
driving.
You got parked.
I didn't get parked, did I?
They came out and tried to stop you, and you ran the kid over.
You get out of
Do you
my
not
way.
remember the kid? They sent a 17-year-old kid out there to stop you for dangerous driving, and you almost ran him over.
He shouldn't have got in my way.
It's the rules. His job is to stop you for cheating.
Rules are overrated.
Okay.
I agree with that.
You guys are awesome. Thank you, boys. Great job this weekend.
All right, Kevin. Thanks so
guys.
much, buddy.
Danny.
Scott and Kirk, the Racing Boys. The website is racinboys.com.